Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to the current training course on graphic alerts in the KnowledgeSync system. Please note that this is the second of 2 training courses on this subject, and we strongly recommend that you have viewed the initial course before proceeding with the current session. In the first course, we identified how a graphic alert, a bar chart, pie chart, line chart, or the like, could be created and associated with a triggered event. And during our first course, we configured an event that sent out an email alert message, and that email alert included a single graphic chart. Now, in this particular training session, we're going to try something a little bit more sophisticated. We are once again going to configure an event that looks at overdue invoices. Specifically, we're going to identify those sales reps within an organization who have a lot of clients with overdue invoices, and instead of having this event generate just one chart, we're going to configure this event to automatically generate a separate chart for each salesperson who has clients with excessive overdue invoices. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the existing event before we associate a chart to it. We're working with the event called Sales Reps Very Overdue Clients. And as you can see, this event is using a query that's totaling the overdue invoice balance for all of the customers that belong to each sales rep. And we're going to look at each sales rep's total overdue invoice balance to see if it exceeds $10,000. If it does, we want this event ultimately to generate a chart for each sales rep. And that chart will show the breakdown of those overdue invoices by customer. Right now, let's take a look at the current email alert message that exists for this event. As you can see, this event is generating an email alert message that reads, the following sales reps have clients owing at least $10,000 in overdue invoices. And for each sales rep who meets those criteria, we're showing the sales rep name, followed by the total of the overdue invoices of their clients. Now, the idea here is if I have 20 sales reps in my sales department when this event runs, if only 5 of them are found to have clients whose total overdue balance exceeds $10,000, I'm going to want this event to generate a separate chart for each of those 5 sales reps. So let's start out by designing what this chart is going to look like. And that begins with a query. In this particular case, we're going to look at the query called Chart Overdue per Customer. So, like any query that's going to drive content for a chart, this one starts out by allowing you to identify the tables from which that information is going to be retrieved, and then allowing you to specify the 2 elements of information that every chart requires, the x-axis and the y-axis. First of all, we want this particular query to total up the invoice balance of all overdue invoices for a given customer. So our first column is the invoice balance field, and we have changed the column type from normal to summarize to total that value. And since the idea of this chart is to show us a total overdue invoices for each customer, we are going to select our second column, our group by field, to be the customer name. Now let's jump over to the Filters tab of this query, and let's stretch out our fields to make them a little bit easier to read. Now, because the purpose of this chart is going to be to generate a separate chart for each sales rep, we need to allow this query and its chart to generate separately for each salesperson. So we have to be able to feed in the salesperson number of each salesperson that meets our event's criteria. So our first filter is on the salesperson number, and we are making that a parameter-driven filter so that this can be fed from the results of our event. And because we want to total up only those invoices that are past due, we have a second filter here that checks to make sure that the invoice due date is less than or prior to the current date. Now we can test the results of this query by selecting a specific salesperson. And I'm going to choose Ginny Hernandez, who is salesperson number 400. As we can see here, for Ginny, she's got 5 customers who make up all of her clients' overdue invoices, and we're able to identify which of those customers contribute the majority to her overdue invoices. So our query is done. We can save it, and next move on to the creation of the chart that uses that query. So this time we're going to open up the chart called Overdue Clients per Rep. And let's just grab a hold of that, and there we go. Open it. And this particular chart, once again, has a title, Overdue Clients per Rep. And just as we did in the previous training session, let's remove the query and re-add it to this particular chart. As you can see, we have chosen that once again we want to generate a bar chart. We've chosen the format. Since the amounts that are going to be shown are going to be dollar values, we've chosen to format them as currency. Let's now add our query. So what we're looking for is the query we were just reviewing, overdue per customer. We're going to select it. And as anticipated, this query, because of its filter, is going to prompt for a specific salesperson. So once again, just for testing purposes, we can select salesperson 400, Ginny Hernandez. Let's have a look at the results of this query. Okay, let's stretch it out a little bit, make sure we're seeing all of its columns of data, and we are. And here, once again, we can see Capri Sailing Ships is the major culprit, the offending party in terms of racking up the most overdue invoices of any of Ginny's customers. Let's save this chart for right now. But, you know, I don't want this chart to run just for Ginny Hernandez. I need it to be able to run for each salesperson that meets my event's criteria. So I actually need to change the parameter value. I don't want to hard code the parameter to be Ginny Hernandez, number 400. Rather, I need this parameter to be able to be set by the event itself that is triggering. So this is where this gets a little bit more fun and sophisticated. We simply type in a question mark. We are once again making this parameter driven by a value that's coming from the event itself. I'm going to save this parameter. I'm going to save this chart. Now, let's go back to the event itself. Here is our event, and we can expand its various components. From before, we know that this event contains only a single alert message being sent out via email, and now we want to add a chart to this event. So I'm going to open this particular event and go to its Reports tab, as that's where we add either crystal reports or charts to a given event. We're going to click on our Add Report button, and we're going to look for the chart that we just designed, the one called Overdue Clients per Rep. Now notice, when we select this chart, we're getting a parameter. That parameter is asking us for what salesperson is the chart going to be generated for. Of course, I could, once again, manually type in Ginny's sales rep number, 400, but that's not what I want. Because this particular event is going to run, and it's going to generate a list of all of the sales reps whose clients' overdue invoices exceeds $10,000. Like we said, we might have 20 total sales reps, but only 5 of them meet this event's criteria. What I need to do is I need to take each of those 5 sales reps' IDs and pass them into the chart I want generated. By virtue of associating this query to this event, we know that this query is going to retrieve each of those 5 sales rep numbers. So if I go back to my Reports tab, let's make my answer field just a little bit bigger so it's easier for us to work with. Click on the List button that shows us a list of valid answers, and there is my salesperson number field. Simply by doing this, we are now configuring this one event to dynamically generate a separate chart for each record that meets the event's criteria. I could even further design this event so each of those charts gets sent either to the appropriate salesperson, simply by including the sales rep's email address as part of my query, or of course I could simply send this alert to the appropriate sales manager. Again, the cool thing about this particular event is that it's going to dynamically generate a separate chart for each record that meets the event's criteria. And going over to my email tab, as long as I have the checkbox, include reports as email attachments, the chart specified back on the Reports tab will automatically be attached to the outgoing email message. Let us save and close this event. And now, if we just shrink down a couple of the components of this event, we can see that this event now has 2 deliverables. It is going to generate the email alert message, and it's automatically going to generate this chart, one chart for each sales rep that meets this event's criteria. And that wraps up this second of the 2 training courses on the creation of graphic alerts in the KnowledgeSync system. For more details, please do refer to Chapter 12, Charts and Graphs in the KnowledgeSync manual. My name is Don Farber. I thank you very much for your time and attention today, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks very much.